It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing my mentor, my idol. I mean, my gosh, I've known Imtiaz. I knew you back when you lived up in Vancouver, when I used to go up there, and your boys could both sit on my lap at the same time. Imtiaz Manji is co-founder of Spear, where he continues to provide strategic vision and leadership to the industry's premier destination education center and digital learning platform. Mr. Manji's unique gift is inspiring others to action. For the last 30 plus years, dentistry has benefited from his powerful speaking and writing, his tireless leadership in an ever-changing field, and his practical, actionable strategies for a successful life in dentistry. His unique vision and insightful views about the dental profession have been sought out by thousands of practitioners, including many of dentistry's highest profile clinicians, as well as executives at leading companies serving the dental market. Despite the vast scope of his influence, Mr. Manji's devotion as always remains with the dentist, the practice, its team, and ultimately the patients. Having studied thousands of practices, he knows that no two are exactly alike, and yet many faces the same challenges. Giving practitioners the confidence to navigate these challenges and the knowledge and tools they need to do so is where his true passion lies. Mr. Manji has been the founder and/or chief executive of 4 successful dental-related businesses. Today, in his role with Spear, he works company-wide to support new business strategies and client success through innovative services and programs. In addition, he serves as a strategic business advisor to executives at several national and international dental companies. He is a co-founder of the Open Wide Foundation, whose mission is to bring quality dental care to impoverished communities around the world, and has been recognized as an honorary member of the Hinman Dental Society and an honorary fellow of the International College of Dentists for his distinguished contributions to the dental profession. I'm so excited that you came on the show today because I don't want to be selfish, but I'm here in Phoenix. You're up the street in the rich area town in Scottsdale, and I'm down by the trailer parks at Apache Junction in Phoenix. But Arizona, my office included, we're opening next Monday, May 4th. And it's my intuition from Dentaltown that probably about 10,000 dentists are gonna open up in the first 2 weeks of May. So they're incredibly stressed out, and we have so many things to talk about. But I want to start with the big story of the day, and that is so many dentists are getting pushback from their hygienists wanting to come back because they're hearing stay 6 feet apart. And now you're saying put your face right by a patient's face and turn on the Cavitron and the ProfiJet. So most of the dentists are saying, wow, I didn't realize this, but my hygienist does not want to come back. But we have so many things to talk about. First of all, how are you doing? Are you home safe and sound?
Yes, sir. You know, I had an office in the house, and then a game room outside, and Shelly moved me from the house to the outside, so less maintenance in the house. But yeah, I've been, you know, we're all in this wonderful place in life. And when something like this occurs, we panic, right? Our first instincts are panic, which is very real for us, because this is a very real issue. And so if you talk to me when we first began this process, I think I would be saying something different than I'm saying today. So, you know, we all have had time to reflect and to think and to be innovative and to be creative. And your first thing about, you know, going back to practice next week is, and then the hygienist saying they don't want to come back. And so the thing that I would say to you, Howard, is that you have to decide whether you're going back to practice. And if you're not, then this discussion is over. And if you are, then just focus on that and say, you know, how will I do that? As I've always done that. We've always had issues. We've always practiced safety. And so I'm going to have to practice at a different standard of safety. But the key question is, am I coming back? It will be like doctors saying, I'm not going to go to the hospital because I don't want to deal with this. Well, they deal with this every day. It just happens to be at a new level. We've been caught off guard. We were not prepared for it, but now we know so much. We know more than we think. And so I believe that the decision you're making is, am I going back to practice? And then you need to focus on what that means, what that statement means.
And you and I have known each other for 30 years, and we've been dealing with viruses. I mean, when 1980, when Kimberly Bergalis caught HIV at the dental office, in 1980 and 79, when HIV broke out, dentists weren't even wearing gloves and masks. And then we were in dental school, we were like, well, why do we have to wear gloves and masks on a mannequin? And they're saying, because we don't ever want you to feel, that drill with your ungloved hand, because you might like it. And so when that came out, it started putting downward pressures on the cuspidor, which everyone had in the 80s, and now they're gone. The water coming in from the city to your high speed was replaced with bottled water in the room. So we've been incrementally changing because of HIV, which went on to kill 36 million people. And so if this is your first virus in dentistry, you're probably still in dental kindergarten school, because the old dogs, we've been, and remember the cases that went all the way to the Supreme Court, because you had dentists, like right now they're saying, well, my hygienist didn't want to come back to work. I'm like, well, I'm old, I got a liver spot. I remember when the Supreme Court had to tell a dentist, not once, but twice, it's discrimination if you don't go treat that. It's the American with Disabilities Act. He's HIV positive. You're going to treat him, or you're not going to have a dental license. And then fast forward 2 decades, and now it's the same thing, but it's a new virus. So you're right. We've been dealing with fear of viruses in dentistry our whole lives.
Yeah. And so it just comes down to, to the safety protocols, right? I think that's what we have to talk about, are the safety. And right now I'm seeing there's the standard of safety protocols that the ADA is gonna, they keep revising it, and they'll continue to revise it. There's a standard that the states would require. So all these governing bodies are coming up with their standards, right? And then there's this extreme, right? I don't want to do dentistry in a spacesuit either, right? And so somewhere in here, there is this middle ground. And so if I'm willing to go to practice with the safety protocols that I put in place, with what is available to me to choose from UV lights to the air conditioning, filtering units, to all the stuff that the aerosol removal devices that some from Dentsply Sirona. So, and people are saying, I'm not gonna use the Cavitron, I'll just use the instruments. So there's many, many things that are available to us, and you're gonna choose the standard of safety that you want for yourself and for your practice and for your team and for your patients, based on exceeding the standards of the governing bodies, but applying common sense to what that means, and deciding to go back, because this is not going away, Howard. You may do testing, but testing is not foolproof right now. And so, and vaccine, I'm not sure that it's going to come out the end of this year, the end of next year. We had a private conversation on that. So the key decision here is, are you going back? And then focusing on how you get comfortable going back with the safety standards. And then the team has to make a choice. Are they coming back? And if the hygienist doesn't want to come back, well, that's a choice she's going to have to make. In fact, you may not be able to bring back all of your hygienists, because the patients may not want to come back. So this is not about, what do I do about my hygienist? This is about, you're gonna, if you feel that you need to go back, get safe, go back, have the teams that come with you, adjust the way that you appoint, adjust the way that you do filter patients on the telephone, adjust all of those protocols, and go back. Because you're going to go back.
That's so well said. I mean, even the problem with alcoholics, what's step 1 of AA? You have to admit there's a problem. I personally know a registered nurse that when this happened, she was ready to run back to that hospital. It was her call of duty. And then I know another nurse that cried to her husband and says, I don't ever want to go back. And he said, okay, well, then don't go back, and we'll adjust her living. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing that's tough, almost all the dental CEOs I know that I'm friends with have you on speed dial for these tough decisions. How do you coach a young kid having tough decisions? Because you see them frustrated where their government says they have to take a temperature when you come in. And then they post 3 studies on Dental Town in a row that show studies that 36% of residents at a Boston homeless shelter being treated for COVID-19, only 1% had a fever. So these young kids are getting conflicting information. You know, they're told to take their temperature. Then they got 3 studies that says it doesn't matter. You know, so they're young. And so how do you make decisions when you're dealing with imperfect information that's moving fast?
So I think that the beauty and the curse of where we are is there's a heightened amount of data and information that's coming out. Some of it is exaggerated, some of it is wrong, some of it is common sense, some of it is right. And so the problem that we have is, Howard, I used to get 40, 50 emails a day. I know you get probably more. And that's after I'd filtered them. And so 1/3 of Susie's job as my assistant is to get rid of all the noise so that I only get to what's important. And so I've had to organize my entire life, not just now, on what I say yes to. You and I have been friends forever. You stayed at my house, and I've come to your house where I remember the 4 kids rolling down the stairs with a bed that was large enough to fit the entire army. Your bed was larger than my whole bedroom, right, at the time. And so we've seen each other in this, and so much has come to us. And one of the things that, Howard, we've had to learn to do is to get through the noise and say what's important, what's credible. So in this time of crisis, the amount of data that's coming up and the amount of information that's coming up to us is so rapid that the first job we have is to figure out, okay, who do I have faith in? Who do I want to listen to? And remove all the other stuff and go there, because the truth is, temperature by itself is not enough. That's a fact, right? And so the ADA has a great site right now, by the way. There's a toolkit they've built on how you can return. So I have chosen maybe 3 sources of information. One is a financial think tank that's put together for the marketplace, right? We're in a consumer economy. And what we've done in America is we've shut down the consumer. And so the impact of shutting down the consumer is unbelievable. So when you think about the aid that we've got from the stimulus package, there isn't enough money in the world to throw at this problem and keep people feeling safe about going back, period. The stimulus package is just a temporary patch, and that will end. And so the hygienists that are sitting at home, the staff that are sitting at home, they're gonna be unemployed if they don't go back, and they're gonna have to decide whether this is a profession they wanna be in, and they're gonna have to go back, right? So just like that, you've gotta get through all the noise and say, who do I wanna listen to? And then just focus on that, and then get comfortable for yourself in going back. Can I tell somebody to go back tomorrow? The answer is no. I'm not gonna tell people to go back. I'm gonna tell people to review the safety protocols and get confident. And I'm going to go to the practice that I feel confident in. And so my answer here to that young person is, I sympathize with you and I empathize with you, I really do, but you gotta find the source and stay with it, right? So if I wanna know what's really going on out there, I call you, you're my source. When you wanna know what's going on out there, you call me. We talk to each other when there are crises, it seems, and when there are opportunities, it seems. The last conversation we had was in 2008, when you said to me, what the hell are you gonna do with that center now? Because the economy has crashed and people aren't flying. So, and we go through that, right? And so we're gonna get through this. My advice to people right now is very simple. Filter the information that you're getting and narrate the sources that you feel good about, that you feel confident about, and then make a good decision for yourself.
Well put. And I want to say something to the young kids, because I mean, my 4 boys have turned into 6 grandkids, and your boy just had a little girl, right?
A boy, yeah.
Oh, it was a boy? And
yeah.
my gosh, I hear these little young dentists under 30 saying things, well, I'm going to wait for the vaccine. Do you realize when I was in dental school in 87, the vaccine for periodontal disease and dental decay was around the corner? And do you not realize that the vaccine for the common cold from coronavirus and rhinovirus has been promised since the year I was born in 1962? So if you're waiting for a coronavirus vaccine, because no one's going to get funded saying, I don't think we have a chance. So 103 companies are funded because they're like, yeah, I think we can do this. But when I read their podcasts and I listen to people, kind of credential, like the head of the Max Planck Institute, the Louis Pasteur Institute, just the legends of virology, they're like, we may never get this in 100 years. So if you're waiting for the vaccine for the coronavirus, I've been waiting for it my whole life. And when do you think the vaccine for dental decay and periodontal disease and the common cold is? Are you going to wait to go back to work till you have that? You might as well just go to the cemetery and pitch a tent and wait for them to open your casket. So my gosh, we have so much to dig into. Let's just start with, oh my gosh, I could go on and on and on and on and on. Let's try to focus on the importance of taking the long view and focusing on your practice economy rather than following movements in the national economy.
So Howard, I kind of did a webinar on the financial framework on how you go back. And then I did 2 webinars on Ramp Up 1 and Ramp Up 2. So I'm going to give you a quick little, and you're an MBA, right? And one of the things I've always respected about you, got a lot of information in your head. You can, give me statistics all day long, but at the end of the day, you make a decision, right? You're a practicing dentist. You're never giving that up because that's your connection to the profession you've chosen that you love so very much. You've got Dental Town that you love so very much, and now you've created all these other towns that connect and look at the success you've enjoyed there. But you haven't given up your passion in dentistry, and you haven't given up your passion for speaking, and you haven't given up your passion for having fun, being funny, and making remarks and creating controversy. And when you say to me, what should I avoid? I said, Howard, don't get me involved with a controversy because I'm not built like you, right? And so, if you think about it, if I did 1.2 million, let's just take 1.2 million last year, okay? And the average practice at 68%. The overheads average 68% is, according to many of the research that is done in our own research. It goes from 65% to 70%. And in dentistry, we look at overhead as everything's paid, the rest is mine. And then I will plan it, the car, the trips, I'll plan the tax implications of that, paying my children, my spouse. So 68% is in that mode. So if I work normally for 2020 and there was no difference, let's say I only did 1.2 million, my results would still be the same. But I was the same in 2020 for January, February, and maybe half of March. So now I've done the 250,000, right, in dentistry. So the question is, if my overheads didn't change at all, which is not possible because your lab and your supplies are variables, right? If it did not change at all, and if I didn't have any furloughs where I've let my staff go, if I didn't have any stimulus package information available to me, and I did 50% of what I did in 2019, I'm going to be behind a significant amount of money, right? But if I did 70% of 2019, and I got some help in stimulus, say it's 50,000, and I got some help in furloughs, let's say it's 25,000, and then I got some help with my lab and supplies because it's not going to be the same at 70% as it was at 100%. I get within $10,000 for what I did in 2019. So what should I be focused on? is how do I return? And I have to take a look at this return and say, if I took July 1 through December of this year, and I took January 1 to June of next year, and I took July and December of next year, so now that's 3 6-month periods, can I ramp up in those 3 periods and make up for 2020? I'll put money on the fact that I can, right? Because
you can.
Absolutely, 100%. So I have a good friend who's also a member of my think tank. His name is, he's a periodontist. So he's in Sweden. About 2 years ago, he says to me, this young man says to me, he says, I only work half time. And I looked at him and I said, really? And well, he said, there's 365 days in a year and I work 180. I only work part-time. And it was such a refreshing view of how he felt. He was only working half time. And I said, well, what do you do about the rest? Well, I spend time getting better as a periodontist, getting better as a business, but at chairside, I'm only half time. So Howard, I'm going to have to return to work. And if I work 4 days a week, I'm going to work a half a day a week more for the next 18 months to make up for the first 6 months. I may have to work a year more before I retire, but this is not the end of the world. So if I take a look at this and say, where am I at the end of 2021? That's what I need to focus on. And so when I ramp up, let's say in Arizona, you're starting work next week, but let's say I choose not to start till June 1. I'll promise you, Howard, I'll have my first 4 weeks scheduled because I'll have made care calls, people that I canceled that I need to bring back in, people that were halfway through treatment that I need to treat, people that had treatment that needed to be done that I could not schedule because of what occurred. There is so much wealth in the charts, right? At the average practice with 1,000 charts, with 1,000 patients they've seen in a 12-month period is going to have about $1.5 million worth of dentistry in their charts. So my focus would be, what's my day look like? What's my template in the new reality? And we talked about this, and I'm not going to bring patients in and say, here's a new patient exam, and then come back and we'll do this dentistry. It's going to be, I'm going to use, if I have a CERAC, I'm going to use my CERAC, and I'm going to basically filter the patient, do teledentistry, understand a little bit more about why they're coming in, and appoint as though, and tell the patient, I want to bring you in, and I want to bring you in as little as possible so that it's convenient for you, not safe for you, convenient for you, because time is incredibly important in the world that we live in today. And we've got safety protocols that are really, really established. So we've slowed down our practice so we can do more per patient so that we can help the patient and make sure that we do great dentistry. So I'm going to filter the patients and bring them back in and sit down and get it done and just get it done. And so I think this is a marvelous opportunity for us all to think about this high traffic practices where patients come in and out, where we do toothpaste dentistry to do what spheres always believe. It's treatment planning, comprehensive dentistry, sequence it correctly, do quadrants if you can, and more per visit. And that is the focus. That needs to be the focus. And if my case acceptance was 60% in the past, I may need to have case acceptance at 75% to make up for the number of patients that won't come in. So the correct question would be, Howard, how many patients will come? That's the right question. Right? If you've answered that you're going back, right? You've answered that your safety protocols are where you will go to work and go home to your 90-year-old father that you love to pieces and your 70-year-old wife that you love to pieces, right? I'm just making all this up, right? And to the grandchildren that are at home, if you can answer that question, then I'm coming to your practice, right? How confident are you to go back? And then how confident is the team to go back is my ability to communicate with the team. Let's develop our safety protocols together. And then while I'm waiting to go back, I'm making care calls to patients. So patients are going to be in 3 categories, by the way. They're going to be in 3 categories. The ones that are economically affected, right? They're economically affected. There's going to be ones that have a mindset effect. They've continued to work because they were in businesses they could work at home from. Walmart has increased the number of people they're hiring. Amazon has increased the number of people. So in that way, there's other, particularly in Scottsdale in Arizona, we have a wonderful wide-based economy that's also driven by the digital world that we live in today. And so people aren't affected, but their mindset is affected. People that are on furlough, they still have their benefits, but their mindset is affected. So how will I let those people know that dentistry is really important and that we're waiting to look after them, right? And then there'll be people, the third group, that will say, you know, I've always wanted to do this. Why not? I'm going to look after myself because I don't know about tomorrow. So today I'm going to live an incredible life and I want a good, healthy mouth so I can enjoy to eat and drink and play with my grandchildren. So I think you're going to get those three types, and our ability to make that type 2 feel really safe and secure, right? I used to say, Howard, in 2009, I would say you can either participate in the American economy or you can participate in the practice economy. You have to decide. So yes, in 2008, there was a real financial crisis. It might have affected 20, 30% of the families and communities, but the other 60, 70% it didn't. So I'm gonna look after the 20, 30% and do courtesy as much as I can as when I have downtime, and I'm gonna focus on the people that aren't affected and to help them see that this is important, because dentistry doesn't go away, right? The conditions in the mouth, if you don't do the dentistry, it just gets worse. And over time, you've got to deal with it. So dentistry is always going to be there. It's not like I can postpone it, but I can only postpone it so long.
Okay, I'm taking notes. So there are three types of patients. One was unemployed and lost benefits. And what was 2 and 3? Just
so the second one is the mindset block, right? The mindset block is I'm on furlough. I have my benefits. I know I'm going back, but I'm concerned about going back for health reasons. I'm concerned about going back because I don't trust the economy. Will there be money in the future? Because I still have to pay out of pocket something. And people that may not have a plan. And then the people that are employed are working out of their houses or in businesses where there's safety put in place and they're back at work. Those people are in the mindset block.
And what was number 3 again?
Number 3 is where somebody decides, you know, and I'll tell you a story in a second. Somebody decides that, you know, why not? Why would I not look after myself? There's a lot of people that work hard, they're charging forward, and they know they need to do a comprehensive case. I'm just making that up. And so they put it off. They put it off because they've been so busy. And this time has allowed them to reflect and say, what are the things that I love that I want to get done that I haven't done? And I'm not saying they're thinking about dentistry. I'm not saying that they're dreaming about going to see Howard as soon as Howard opens up. I'm saying they're in this why not mind frame that happen to have a lot of dentistry done, and we have to be able to appeal to them to move forward. So how we dealt with the 2009 and 10 crisis as Spear is to help people treatment plan and create value and get a higher level of case acceptance. This is what we need to do now. And our dentistry is 51% clinical and 49% business. The 1%, if in doubt, be patient-centered. Gary DeVoot says that, Frank says that, all of us say that, but never has that been more real for dentists than it is now. And we've been putting all kinds of financial framework modeling in place so that the average dentist can get through our framework and see what they have to do to break even every day and what they have to do to get past the break even, and how do they get through this process, right? And so the concept, those are the 3 types of patients. And there's gonna be type 2 and type 3, and we're gonna need to be really good at communicating with our patients, making care calls and making sure they're fine, and care calls that are genuine from the heart, and letting them know, the people that are unemployed, that look, you got a problem, you've been a patient of mine for 10, 15 years, you call, we'll take care of you. We'll worry about the money later.
Imtiaz, sorry to go off on a tangent here, but you're making my mind think so many different things, and I want to go to a completely different topic. You're hearing a lot of people in Wall Street saying that the data doesn't make sense. You know, these things used to work, and, you know, if stocks went up, bonds went down, if bonds went up, stocks went down, you know, but there's a lot of things that just aren't syncing right. And one of them is in dental practice transition brokers. So when I talk to practice brokers, they're calling me saying, I've never seen anything like it, because a lot of dentists that had their practice listed have taken their listing down, and they're not sure why. So the supply of practices for sale has plummeted. So in the middle of the COVID-19 practice, a lot of markets are selling, like in Toronto, practices are selling today for 20% higher than pre-pandemic, only because supply and demand. The selling dentist just got scared all of a sudden and pulled his listing down. And then a lot of young dentists were already halfway through the paperwork and approved and all that stuff, and now they're just walking away. And the brokers they're just so confused, because they said we're like caretakers after after a tsunami killed everyone. I mean, the funeral parlors do really well in tragedy. So what do you make of the practice? I mean, why are practices 20% higher than pre-pandemic?
I think that's an outlier. I look, Howard, you've got as much data as I do, and as you know, transitions was what I built my entire career on, right? So I understand transitions. I've done 17,000 of them. I'm not buying that. I'm buying that people are going to take their practices off market, and that happened in 2008 because all of a sudden the practice sale wasn't enough. And I used to say, if you're relying on your practice sale to retire, you don't have a good retirement plan. The practice sale should be a bonus. It should not be a retirement. Do you realize, Howard, if you just to go, because you bring up a good question. If my practice was worth $1 million, I'm probably producing $1 million, $1 million, $2 million, $3. It's anywhere between 70% of revenues, and these methods that they use and all their formulas. But when you really boil it down, it's 70 to 90% of last year's collection, right? And then these outlier sales, I'm not gonna, should I buy a practice that did $600,000 for $200,000, or should I spend $700,000 in a practice that was doing $1 million? The lower price one might be a burden. It might need all the equipment replaced. It might need, so the value of a practice is my ability to create ongoing income, right? Because somebody's got to pay for it, and the bank's going to need to finance it. So so when you look at the practice value, let's say I'm doing, my practice is worth $1 million, back to that $1.2 million example, that's 3 years of net, right? But if I have this year lost $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 of my cash flow, right? I'm going to think, shoot, I can't sell now. I can't afford to retire. I need this income. So that's why you're seeing people take their practices off market. On the other side, you're seeing practices that are saying, holy smokes, I better sell now. Dentistry is not the way I want to practice. This health thing is gotten out of control, because you see on all this news, you're seeing these spacesuits dentists are wearing to do dentistry. And so the health concern is so amplified right now and so heightened, people are saying, do I want to practice that way? And the answer is no, I don't need the practice to retire. I'm just going to sell my practice. And so if I'm in a market where the demand for practice acquisition is higher than the supply, I might get more money for my practice than I ordinarily would get at this point in time. But that's going to be outliers in very specific market conditions, right?
So if you were a young dentist and January, February, March, you were bracketing in on this practice and everything was moving along, and then all of a sudden brokers are saying a lot of buyers and sellers, they're just frozen. The seller's not delisting, the buyer's not signing, it's just frozen. We're almost at May 1. What would you tell these guys who pre-pandemic, this was a great idea, and now they're just frozen?
So look, I think the advice I would give is going to depend on, can you do dentistry on me? You're not going to do it without records, right? And diagnosis. So let me give you some parameters the way that I look at it. So So if I'm a seller, and I have a practice, and I'm not relying on the sale of my practice for my retirement, and I decide that, you know, this is okay. I still want to move on because this is not the way I want to practice. I might go to, if I have a buyer that's frozen saying my bank won't fund me, or because now the bank is nervous, right? Because where's the money going to come from? It's not going to come from Howard or Imtiaz. It's going to come from the bank. So many banks are frozen. Should I lend this money? So there are ways that you can deal with this. You can basically say, look, give me half of what my value is, and let's do an earnout over 5 years. And I'm happy to take 10% of your revenues until you pay me out. So there is a deal to be made between a willing buyer and a willing seller, given the circumstances we're in. Does that make sense? So in that example of $1 million practice, I might accept 600,000 if I didn't need my practice, and then take the other 400 in an earnout that over a 5-year period, because the young dentist is not going to try and say, I don't want to pay you out, so I'm going to do less production, right? I've got to have some faith in the market economy, in the dentist that's there. So if I like the kid, and so I was the dentist and I like the kid, I'm gonna sit down and work it out. It's where two rational people come together and say, you want my practice, I want to sell it. This is a cloud, right? But it's not, my practice is worth $1 million before this cloud came over it. It's absolutely worth 600,000. The other 400,000, I'm willing to bet on you, but we'll do it over 5 years. Pay nothing in the first year, and I'll take 10% of your revenues for the next 4 years after that.
Now, I want to give a little rant, then have you, and then see, then ask you a question at the end. Oral surgeons have always been the most profitable money-making specialty. I mean, they've always made the most money. They average like 450,000. When they come out of school with all their debt, their base salary is always over 300,000, and then they usually get 45% of production. It's just so if you're in dental kindergarten school and you don't want to come out now and you want to specialize, obviously oral surgery has always been number one. And endo, when you and I were little, endo was always number one, because like when I got to Phoenix here, and I mean, you know, the guys like Matlow and Leibowitz and all the genius endodontists, they were always doing 8 to 9 root canals a day, and they were at the same level as oral surgeons. But now these young these new endodontists come out of school, and they want to do the whole thing through a microscope because they actually believe they're neural surgeons attaching nerve endings or whatever they're doing under that microscope. And so they cut their productivity in half. They've gone from 8 to 9 to 4 to 5. So when you look at endo, the old endodontists are making bank, and the young ones, just every time they turn around, they find another $50,000 machine to slow the root canal down another hour, you know, and that's kind of crazy. But ortho was a great profession, but that's a game of volume. They're roller skating from chair to chair and all these open bays. And oral surgeons, all my oral surgeon friends are closing the surgery door and putting in negative air pressure, and you know, the endodontists, the same thing. You know, they were always the most profitable, and they weren't a game of volume. But the orthodontists were like number 3 profitable. But my pediatric dentist friends and my orthodontist friends, they don't even know what they're going to do. They all got, every pediatric dentist I know right here in Phoenix has like 6 open bays. My gosh, what would you, I mean, talk about, I wish I was an oral surgeon or an endodontist. If you're an endodontist, just, I know you're in love with your microscope, but you know, you need a new friend, you know, spend more time with your spouse. But God, what are you telling orthodontists and pediatric dentists in Scottsdale with 6 open chairs and a bay?
So, yeah, there was quite a rent. The last 5 years of my time at Spear has been spent, you know, wherever there are disturbances, there are opportunities. So let's talk about the specialty profession as a profession, right? I think that the oral surgeons deserve all the money that they make, because look at the education they went through, right? It isn't easy to become an oral surgeon. Look at endo, right? Endo is also education. Perio is also education. The education is, and so in the 60s, it was simple, right? The restorative doctors did what they did, and the specialists did what they did, and there was no gray area. You go to universities, very clean, very clear. Nobody was allowed in to talk to those students that had a business angle or were going to touch their students to do endo or to do oral surgery or whatever. And now it's rings are named out of corporate entities. You've got young dentists learning how to do basic specialty procedures, right? At university.
Hey,
So
hi.
today, hey buddy,
Hi.
how you doing, man?
Good.
Good. Is that your grandpa?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who took care of that tooth? You got a tooth missing. Did he take it out or did it fall off? Yeah, you got a great grandpa.
He's the best
So
I've had all day. He didn't even cry when I worked on him. But anyway.
awesome. You keep your hair, okay? Don't be like grandpa.
every time I take him to the barber, I say, "Cut it like grandpa," and he's like, "No." But anyway, sorry to interrupt.
So I think that the specialists are going to do what the restorative doctors can't do. And so when you look at the complexity of cases, a restorative doctor, there's restorative doctors, there's super dentists that put the time and energy into becoming really good at what they do. There's prosthodontists, and then there's all the specialty areas. And I can do all the midnight courses that I want online and on YouTube. I'm not going to become an endodontist. I'm not going to become an oral surgeon. So I want to put aside that statement because I've now gained such respect for the specialists because of the work I've done with them in the last 5 years. Today, 40% of the endodontist dentistry is actually redos, right? Actually redos. So,
well, those are only on immigrants because all the dentists done their root canals fail. So it must be people flying in from other countries with failing root
I
canals.
have no idea, but I can tell you that it isn't, and it is redos. So the orthodontist model is going to have to change. The pediatric dentist model is going to have to change. So, for example, if I have an open bay, is there a gap between those chairs, right? How far is this chair from this chair? I may have to go every other chair when I first come in. I may have to put a UV light in place right by the chair. I may have to have special devices that remove the aerosol, but I'm going to have to take a look at that model and redo my approach to templating, right? And so they're going to have an adjusting period where they have to organize their comeback in a way that I may have to skip every other chair, and I may have to look at safety standards that allow me to be in an open bay that could mean UV lights, right, after each patient visit. The way I stagger patients, it won't be that there's 5 patients waiting for me and I go boom, 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 boom. It may need to be a staggered approach where I'm keeping, as I said, every other chair empty, so that if I have 6 chairs, I might have 3 chairs, 3 apart, right, and then swap with the next batch. And I'm going to have to get really good at making sure that all of that is optimized, right? I'm going to have to be good at how many people are waiting in the front area. Because if I have people coming in the first batch arrives at 8, the next batch arrives at 8:20 or 8:15 or 8:30, I have to change that. I may have to say I'm going to have a template that has, the first batch arrives at 8, but it's half that batch. The next batch might arrive at 8:10, right? So that I can control the flow in the reception area. They're going to have to they've always been masters of templating. Orthodontists do really, really well, and they've always been master of templating. Has been the pediatric dentist. They're just going to have to take that template to a new place, and in the yellow zone, they're not going to return to the productivity that they're used to. But I have confidence that they will find ways to optimize how they schedule correctly with the health devices that keep them safe, right?
And by the way, I just want to say it again because it's every other post on social media, Dental Town emails. So many people are saying they're waiting for a vaccine, and I just want to tell you that I mean that's like saying I'm waiting for for them to discover life on another planet. Um, waiting for a vaccine against a coronavirus, which is the common cold, which has had probably over 100 billion thrown at it since 1960. And if you listen to the top virologists, in fact, I listened to one guy for an hour from Australia, the head of the Virology Institute, talk for an hour why he doesn't believe they'll ever get the vaccine. Now, is he all excited? Yes, because he's getting all kinds of money. He's hiring all kinds of new young PhD grads. Is he going in there trying his hardest? Absolutely. But does he think there's a chance in his lifetime? No. So I want to go through. I want to go through 4 industries, and I want to start.
Can
with,
I give you a quick?
Yeah.
Statement? I would love to do this podcast in February, and hope that you're wrong. All right.
Oh yeah.
So my point is, I will not make a decision based on a vaccine. I'm going to make a decision on, do I want to practice dentistry, a profession that I love, that I make sacrifices to get into. You have to be a certain percentile of people that qualify to get in, to get accepted. It's the hardest thing to get into. It's still the number one of the healthcare professions. There's more people applying for dental school than there's for medical school. So the question I agree with you, but where I'm saying it doesn't matter to me whether they come out with a vaccine or not, because then there will be another thing that will come out. And so what I have to do, another issue that might occur in the world that we live in today. And so what I'm saying is, decide that you're a dentist, decide you love your profession, decide on the safety protocols, and go back when your governing bodies allow you to go back in and learn how to deal with a new model of practice. Period.
Yeah. I'm not saying I'm bitter, but when I was in college, Upjohn Pharmaceuticals was saying they were going to cure male pattern baldness, and I knew I would have it before graduation. And I don't know if you can tell, Imtiaz, but if you look real close to my head, they've been saying so. Yeah, but if we go back to just strictly Einstein, remember Einstein kept saying there's no past and there's no future. There's only the present. And so, yeah, I really hope they cure male pattern baldness first and then get the coronavirus vaccine second. But just because hope is not a strategy. I hope it happens. They've thrown a lot of money. It may happen, but I hope I'm wrong. And I hope by Christmas I'm going to the barber getting a haircut, and there's a vaccine for dental decay, gum disease, and coronavirus. But you just can't bank a strategy on. But I want to ask you 4 questions in a row. When you look at the planet of 7.5 billion people, there's 2 million dentists. There's about a dentist for every 6,000 people. In the 20 richest countries, there's 5 physicians for 1 dentist. And then in the 100 poorest countries, there's 5 dentists for 1 physician. You're not gonna get treated for prostate cancer in the Congo, but you will find a dentist to pull that tooth. But the only 2 areas, it's a very mature industry. I mean, I started with Pierre Fichard in France and then G.V. Black, but it basically has been growing with the economy, except for 2 sectors. Only 2 sectors have been growing double-digit the GDP, and that's been implants and clear aligners. I mean, these are double-digit growth companies. Let's start with implants because your group has always been the low volume. You're across from Mayo Clinic. Some of the best implantologists in the world teach with you. Give us an update on implants, COVID-19. How does that industry look for you? And then I want to follow that with clear aligners.
So look, I think that depending on the numbers you take a look at, there's about 200 million, there's about 500 plus million. If you look at the study done, I think it was done by the American not the not dentistry, but outside dentistry health association. And they studied the number of missing teeth in North America, and it's north of 500 million on 76% of the population that went to a dentist in the last 2-year period, right? And that study was in, I believe, 2014, 15, or 16. And I don't think much has changed since. So there is about 500 million teeth missing. The iData research group is a group that all implant companies fund to keep on top of where this industry is going. And so it's not funded by a strawman or by 3R, it's funded by everybody, right? And so there's about 200 million implants that need to be done in North America if every mouth froze today. There's about 35 to 40 million evangelist patients that are walking around today. I believe last year we might have done south of 6 million implants a year or north of 5 million. So I don't think the implant marketplace is slowing down anytime soon. What will slow it down is dentists getting back to practice and diagnosing the implants, and dentists and specialists partnering up to make sure that this wonderful opportunity is offered to patients in the right way and patients accept it. So, and I think I really believe in my heart that that if I was if I was a betting man, and I'm not, people think I'm the smartest businessman in the world, and I am not. I'm just the smartest guy in what I know, right? So whatever I choose to know, I go as deep as I need to go in order to become. So I'm, if you might, an expert in a very narrow area. My portfolio has always been not stock picking. It's always been a balanced portfolio. It was what I did with Mercer. And so, Howard, I think that the implant market is an exciting market to be in. I think that the specialists and the restorative doctors will always do well. And I think today there's maybe 40, 50,000 restorative doctors doing implants, and then there is 12,000 periodontists and oral surgeons doing implants, and I don't see that changing. I think that will continue to grow. It's going to have we're going to do this, right? Where because the consumer market is shut off, I think implants will ramp up and will return to normal over the next 18 months.
You know, one of the things, the law of unintended consequence, this August 4th, 2020 will be my 30-year anniversary of being on tour. And I've always wanted to write a book. My favorite show of the year is the Super Bowl, and my second favorite show of the year is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I've got to lecture there. Patterson brought me in there to Cleveland, and I spoke up there, and it was so fun for me. I've listened to all those speeches, and I've always asked them if I could get a collection of those speeches to write a book, because they all have the same points. And the points of all those speeches are, they kept the band together, and the police broke up. So U2 is number one. I don't know if U2 would have been that great if police would have stayed together, but you got to keep the band together, and you got to stay open and in business and on the road. And I'll never forget when Cheap Trick did the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They had to duck out early because they had to catch a flight to Tokyo because they were playing in Tokyo the next night. They just been on the road forever. And I didn't know when I gave my first lecture that would mean I would have lectured in 50 countries around the world, but I really became an arbitrage guy, where, okay, well, if gold's selling for $1 here and 90 cents here, I'm just going to buy it for 90 cents off $1. So I always look for when all these smart dentists see something slightly different, I know that's where the hot spot is. And I still can't wrap my mind around why the general dentist placed the far majority of the implants in Korea and Germany and Denmark and Sweden and Brazil. And it's really just the United States and Canada where half of them are placed by specialists. Do you think, I believe given enough time, the whole pot stirs evenly and it'll even out. But right now you have countries like in Korea and many countries. There's 20 countries where the average general dentist, 3 out of 4 general dentists place an implant this week. And then you go to the United States and it's the opposite. Do you see that changing in the near term, say 5 to 10 years?
I don't think so. Look, Howard, let's go back to a topic that you've asked me about, because it'll make the same sense to you. MSOs, right? 10 years ago, people said, by the time 2020 arrives, 70% of the dentists are going to be working for corporate America. What is that today?
Well, we're in Arizona, which is the highest, and it's 18%. But the long tail, there's 5 states, is not even 1%. Stan Bergman, the CEO of Shine, tells me he thinks it's about that they buy about 12% of the supplies. So Arizona is 18%. Stan Bergman says it's 12% of his supplies. I haven't asked Chuck or Rick Benko that question, but it's certainly under 20.
I believe it's under 15, right? Because if you look at the count, people say, if I have 4 locations, I'm kind of like a group practice, right? So the definition of group practice is really different today than it was in the past. So the definition of MSO, DSO, if I have 8 locations, all of a sudden I look like a DSO or an MSO, and that's my vision, to continue to acquire practices, find sources of funding. So that's not going, because one thing that I have faith in is that there is going to be, DSOs aren't right or wrong. I've never believed that they were right, and I've never believed that they were wrong. Independent practice is not right or wrong. I just think that that there are going to be dentists that are going to want to continue to remain independent, and are going to find ways to remain independent and create a partnership so they can use a facility in a broad way. So if I'm a solo practitioner working Monday through Thursday with my 4 chairs, I might bring in an associate who becomes a partner, and we'll spread our calendar so that we're open in the morning and in the evenings and have access to our patient base and the population. And they're going to be fiercely independent. So where will MSOs be 10 years from now? Right? So if you talk to the people that are into it, they'll give you a higher number. If you talk to the people that are not into it, they'll give you a much lower number. And so and the right answer is going to be somewhere in between. So I don't believe that, and you're asking the wrong person, because I only have the information of, dentistry can be broken into different tiers, right? So there's the young dentist, or the dentists that are producing 700,000-800,000. These dentists that do 1.4, 1.5 million. So there's different ways to segment the dentist. I've never listened to the sharp dentists, and I've never listened to the dentists that are always struggling. I've listened to the middle. And when I listen to the middle, they don't want to, for whatever reason, they're made up here. Their profile is, some of them is, I don't want to deal with blood. I just don't. And so their preference is to partner with a great specialist that will do because when I get back, if I'm a restorative doctor and I'm working with a great surgeon with a perio-oral surgery, when that case comes back and we've collaborated, my part in it is I'll put the crown in, 10 minutes later I'm done, and it's $1,000, $1,200, whatever my fees are, right? So I think in North America, we have a different profile. We just do. And so, and I can't explain it, Howard, because you go over there and they eat stuff that we're not going to eat. And so I think we have a profile here of dentists that have chosen the profession not to be super dentists, but to be great dentists and be supported by. And I think that that's still more than half the practitioners out there. And I meet many, many practitioners that say, I don't want to do blood. I want to learn about implants so that I can diagnose it and see it and understand it, but I don't want to do, and I might do the simple ones. And so I think you're going to see the simple ones will continue to increase to be done by the restorative doctors. But the ones that have complexity associated with it, you're going to see referred.
Well, you promised me an hour, but can I take you into overtime because I've still got some bunch of questions.
No worries, no worries.
I want to go back to the super dentist thing because it's a plague. I mean, your model has to incorporate the history. And in 1900, healthcare was 1% of GDP. There were no specialties. By 2000, it was 14% of GDP, and the MDs had 58 specialties and we had 9. Now it's 2020, healthcare is 17% of GDP and dentistry's had 2 more specialties. Yet there's all these dentists who want to be super dentists. They say they want to master endo and perio and silver diamine fluoride and veneers and cosmetics, and they want to do it all. And I'm like, okay, so you're saying we're going back to 1900? There's not going to be specialties. There's going to be this Superman is going to walk into a phone booth, come out with a cape on, and fix any part of your body. Well, how do you coach a dentist to stay focused when they're just, I mean, look at even the MAGD. I got my FAGD, my MAGD, I got my diplomat in the International Congress, but I consolidated all of them into just BFD. But these guys, did you catch that joke, BFD? But the deal is, how do you coach a super dentist that's just running to implants? They literally are gonna, and then they say, well, I want to add sleep apnea, TMJ, and clear aligners, and I'm like, oh my.
So look, it comes down to this, right? You've known me a long time. Howard, you have no idea how many times people come up to me with a business idea. Imtiaz, we got to do this, and it's an innovation, and this laser or that implant system, or so I've really learned the yes/no principle, right? When I say yes to something, I'm saying no to something else. So the question is, what am I saying yes to? I don't care who you are. You can't get good at something unless you're doing it frequently. So if I was a restorative, how many implants would I place in my practice? 1 a month, 2 a month? When you say there's a lot of people doing implants, I'll say to you, the majority of the restorative doctors, the majority, the outliers are, as I said, I never pay attention to the outliers. The outliers fool us, right? And so I can't get good at implants. I can't get good. How many am I going to do of endo? So it comes down to the value of my time. What is the value of my time? And I'm telling you, Howard, that I've seen the financials of 20,000 dentists through my days at Mercer. And the ones, I was shocked, the ones that were super dentists, right? Many of them didn't have successful practices because their hourlies were weak and their new patient flow starts to suffer because you have one failure and you lose not just that person, you lose the entire family. So it has never been my philosophy that specialists should do specialty work and GPs should do GP work. My philosophy is specialists will do what the restorative doctors can't do and what they fail at, because I'm going to do their failures. And so the question then becomes, how do we convince the restorative doctor that being a super dentist has a cost associated with it? You got to look at the cost of how long does it take me to do the procedure? What is my hourly, right? So if I spent, I'm just making this up, 2 hours doing an endo, which by the way is not uncommon with many restorative practices, 90 minutes can be a long time, or I can spend the 20 minutes that I need to spend when the patient comes back and what I'm good at, right? So it comes down to the following, am I economically driven or am I just bored and I want to learn to do this other types of dentistry because it's meaning to my life. I enjoy being that dentist. Or is it a bit of both? And yes, I'm going to promise you that about, 15, maybe 18% of the dentists have aspired to be super dentists. They go down the path of learning. Our mutual friend who passed away, Carl Mish, right? He had a very organized curriculum. And you went through it, and when you came out of it, you were capable of doing a degree of implants. But even then, you knew where your boundaries were and you referred it, right? So I will say to you that it is absolutely important for restorative doctors and specialists, and that was was Frank's core. He had 32 study clubs in his heyday in the old days. We believe very firmly that the restorative doctor and the specialist should be in an interdisciplinary partnership, and that the specialist should not restrict the restorative doctor, but support the restorative doctor. And the restorative doctor should not think they can do everything. They should embrace their specialty relationship. And so somewhere here, it isn't black and white. There's a gray area, and man, if we could just help them with that gray area, patients will get better care. Dentists would sleep better at night.
I really like that. So the next thing I want to ask about is we were talking about that's growing fast with the economy. You had dental implants and clear aligners were growing double digit, and the rest of the dental industry is pretty much just growing slightly above their local economy. But so the orthodontists are they're getting attacked on every front. They had the Smiles Direct Club, and then they were suing them away. And then the pandemic broke out, and it turns out teledentistry was better. And so now they're sitting there with 6 open bays, and they got Smiles Direct Club, who's like, we're going to do this. We're your new orthodontist, because we're going to do the whole thing teledentistry health. And oh my gosh, I don't think there's a specialty. I mean, the ADA recognizes 12 specialties. Obviously, ortho's got to be under the most pressure. And endodontists, by the way, endodontists are under a lot of pressure. But if you send me an email at howard@dentaltown.com, I will come by and steal your microscope, and I'll cut your endo time in half. You'll go from 2 hours to 1 hour. You'll double your money. And but so what do you? I mean, and then the question they're going to ask you, which I know you won't answer because you're a gentleman, but Smiles Direct Club, their stock, I mean, it's fallen all the way down to $3. Would you be, if you're an orthodontist, should you just sell your practice and buy Smiles Direct Club stock at $3? Or so so teledentistry. So that's the question. Teledentistry. Is Smiles Direct Club going to make a massive entry into orthodontics by doing this all on FaceTime and not having to go to a location? And how will the orthodontist respond to that?
So here is kind of how I look at this, right? You're right. I'm not going to answer that other question, but I will tell you this. If Liam said he wanted to be an orthodontist, I'd say to him, good for you, right? Because I've been around this, and Liam is only a year and a half, right? And so I might change my mind. But if he said I want to be involved with dentistry, I'd say, unbelievable. You know, that's awesome, Liam, right? And I will need to support him because Khalil and Lizzie are great parents, and they're doing fantastic with how they see life and how they see raising their grandson, because that's what I'm so fascinated by, right? And that's for another time, that discussion. But you've been through 6 experiences. I've only had my first one. So I'm a maniac. I'm on steroids trying to be the best grandpa in the world and reading everything I can about it. But my message is this, that, you know, I get the sense that in dentistry, we look for the next magic bullet. And right now it appears that the next magic bullet might be teledentistry for the restorative doctor, for the specialists, so that I can filter the patient better and create the right kind of appointment and maximize their visit. My belief is that the way that I answer it is, let's look at movies. A movie comes out, and it comes out where? It comes out in theaters, right? So when the television came about and the movies are coming on television, Netflix, et cetera, we say the theaters will go out of business. And some did, but they reinvented the experience, right? So the IPIC here just shut down because they were in a mall and they're relocating somewhere else. But all of the theaters around now are having a different experience. You reserve your seat, you can order wine, you can order food, and instead of spending $12 a movie, in the old days it was $8, $12, we now go to the theater and I see people spending 80, 90, $100 by the time they get done with their wine and their food. And then that same movie will be in hotel rooms that when business people go, they can get it in the hotel rooms for 18, 19 bucks. And then it comes out on Apple ahead of time at 19 bucks. And then you can rent it for $5.99. And then it shows up in Netflix. And so none of that died. There was just more access. And it created more opportunity. Today, we have COVID-19. Some of the movies are being launched on Apple. Now, I haven't seen the research and the study on did they do better by launching it on Apple, where you buy for $19.50. I rented one for $19.50 because I really wanted to see that movie. And the theaters are shut down. So it was at the time, it was the latest of the Bad Boys, right? And so I watched it and I bought it, right? And it was cheaper for me because I had wine at home, right? So my point is that all of this is going to expand the market. And I think there will be plenty for everybody. But I also think that patients are going to, a fridge is still a fridge. It may have a computer on it now where it sees what's in there and you're running short on milk and it will tell you that you're missing a carton, better order. They're doing all of that. So technology is integrating with the human experience, but a fridge is still a fridge. A dental practice is still a dental practice, a specialty practice. So even though I might do some teledentistry, I promise you the majority of the people still want to go to people. They are not going to trust that I can teledentistry and decide the kind of orthodontics you need. There's still, so I think it's going to be a blend, Howard.
I know you won't answer, but I'm still going to be that annoying journalist and keep asking. But my gosh, when Smiles Direct stock goes from 21 to 3, and I mean, some of these, Henry Schein's gone from 70 to 50. You just have, I know they want to know, are you dipping your toes into these dental stocks, or are you still sitting on the sidelines? Do you think there's going to be more downdrafts?
So look, I have the majority of my portfolio is designed to be not stock picking. Like I look for dividends, long-term safety, and so I don't stock pick. So let's put that to one side, right? So I'm the wrong person to ask because I've always believed in the philosophy, if you haven't made, why risk it? I'm happy with, when people are getting 18%, I'm happy with 7%. If people are losing 25%, I'm happy losing 7%. So I try and stay, once I've made my money, I try and stay even. I will bet on myself way before I'll bet on the market. Right? So if you look at Spear, I bet on myself. Liam and Rizwan bet on themselves with Spear. Frank bet on himself with Spear. So I'm going to bet on myself, right? I'm going to bet, if I'm a dentist, I'm betting on myself. Now, if I do have a gambling fund, right? And a gambling fund is a very small slice. I'm talking, Howard, 5% of my portfolio that I get to have fun with. And yes, I've doubled down on healthcare store. I'm not going to tell you which one because I don't want to be responsible for people, but I've doubled down because I think that we're going, look, if you look at, you're an economist and as a student, if you look at any market, any organization, and Harvard Review did a study, and it was published in Harvard Review. I can't remember which year and what the article was, but I remember reading, and it's easily found, by the way, that article. I remember reading that all the money is made in the down market, right? So when real estate was down, right, how people did what? They got into trouble, right? They lost money. There was a lot of people that lost their houses. We remember that whole those crises, and there were other people that were buying thousands of homes a month, redoing them, renting them. if you drive in Arizona today, in Phoenix, in Scottsdale, you see all these apartment buildings coming up. They can't put them up fast enough because there's a rental market that is going to continue to increase because companies are moving here. So I believe very strongly that the dental market will return, that there is the right time to buy if you have gambling fund is on when it's down, not when it's up. Right? I used to have a favorite statement: when the shoe shine boy tells me which stock to buy, I don't want to be in the stock market. Right? So, but is this the crisis we're in now? Is not a crisis of economy. It's the crisis that we've shut down the consumer. That consumer is returning. So if I have an appetite for long-term investing, I buy good companies in the right market conditions, and I hold on to them to ride this market out. Right? So yeah, I bet my gambling fund right now is in healthcare.
I want to pivot to the COVID class of 2020. I mean, my gosh, they're talk about just not being lucky this year. I try to remind them I'd rather graduate today than in the middle of the Civil War. I was born in 1962, 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, when 1 out of 30 Americans were killed. Everything was made of wood. They fought with fire. I mean, imagine graduating from dental school when the whole country was burned down in 1 out of 30. I'd rather be attacked by a virus than, another country, Pearl Harbor, whatever. There is worse, but it's bad. And they're saying things all the time like, well, if your practice is down 25%, even, you're not going to hire an associate. I mean, the reality is they're the bottom of the totem pole. The owner doctor, if the schedule falls apart, he lets the associate go. DSOs, I mean, let's be frank, Moody's has downgraded the largest DSOs twice already in the last month. We just had, they're reporting on Dental Town, the large DSO in Canada has put a stop payment on their checks, and dental lab technicians are getting on Dental Town saying, I can't believe this. These guys got all these locations and they put a stop payment on their checks. We had Finest Dental collapse. So they're sitting there thinking, gosh darn, I graduated from dental school next month, dude. We're at April 30th. They're going to walk out of school. Are they going to have a job anywhere? What would you tell the COVID class of 2020? 6,500 dentists are graduating next month, and they're like, talk to me.
So I've never with you, I've never promoted Spear. It's always been a conversation about, I do it because you're a friend. You have come to my help. I was down and out, and I remember you took a position for me, and I've never forgotten that position you took for me. So you know who your friends are when you're down and out, right? And you came to my house and you saw my father in my house, and we had an interesting conversation, and you met Shanul, and we talked. He says, who is gonna take me to the bathroom and change me if I was down and out? And it's gonna be Shanul, right? And so today, why am I getting emotional about this? Because I just did this webinar on Full Filthy Rich, and I define what Full Filthy Rich means. And it means the people that you can count on. And I can tell you, Howard, there are very few people you can count on. So at Spear, we started thinking about how are we going to help the universities, because they're the ones that are in real trouble. So we took one of our best resources, Dr. Steve Radcliffe, and he is now spending a fair amount of his time trying to get universities help with what we can offer in order to keep the students engaged. Because it's not just the core class of 20, they're the highest head, but the next class and the class after that, we've got to figure out how do we help those. So I, don't know the exact numbers. You might know them better than I do, because but I think there's 6,000 graduating plus or minus. That is. So this is my message to all of dentistry. This is to dentistry. We have a responsibility to the class of 20. We just do. So there is going to be a significant number of hygienists that don't want to go to practice. And I'm going to promise you that they're part-time, that they don't need to practice when they just stay home. You know that, and I know that they're going to not feel safe and they don't want to come back. Is it all of them? No. If you asked me what percentage, Howard, I would guess 15, maybe 20%, right? Have the luxury of saying, I'm not going to go back, I'm fine. Have the luxury of saying that, and we'll stay home, and then we'll return when they want to return. And we'll hire them because we'll need the hygienist. So they have this choice. There's assistants, good assistants, that are not going to return, right? But they can return when the times are good, or they may just change, they may pivot their profession. So I have two messages. I have a message to the graduating class of 20. You get into a practice and you become the hygienist, if you have to, for the period of time of a successful practice that has had 3 hygienists in the state that allows it, is not going to be able to do 3 hygienists. Find that person and say, let me be your hygienist, and then let me be your associate, and then let me be your partner, and I'm going to be patient, right? My message to the dentist is, where you've got the capacity, where you have the capacity, and the hygienist is not willing to come back, do it. And then I'm going to say to the dentist that's coming, graduating, and saying that, look, if that dentist is short an assistant a day because the assistants, he had 3, now he's bringing back 1, and from time to time he's going to need some support, be that person. Support and do over the shoulder and be the assistant and learn. Because if I had a graduating dentist today, I had Dr. Virani is in North Vancouver, my nephew, my sister's son, my only family member that became a dentist. I said, don't worry about making money the first year. Find the best practice you can, because you will learn more being in a great practice than you will today. So I'm saying to the class of 20, there's only 6,000 of you. There's absolutely 6,000 opportunities that are out there. You have to approach the referring doctor, to the specialists that might know who these dentists are, the supply reps that might know who these dentists are, and basically say, I'm willing to take care of hygiene for those people that want hygienists to come back and are not, they're not coming back. And I'll happily do hygiene for a period of time until there's enough demand where hygiene and dentistry can be partnered up. So I'll then do part-time hygiene, part-time dentistry, and then over time we'll move hygiene out. So that's number 1. Number 2, I think that this is now my message is to the dentists. They were going to bring on associates, but then stopped, or have had healthy hygiene departments, and now the hygienists aren't coming back. Think about a residency program in your practice with one of these 6,000 wonderful dentists that are going to graduate. Give them a salary, a nominal salary, and say, for this salary, like if I was paying, I'm just making this number up, Howard, if I was paying my hygienist $80,000, I'm going to pay you $80,000 to do the hygiene work, and then I will let you do the dentistry on the days that I'm not going to be in practice, because patients are going to want access. So if I'm working Monday through Thursday, you work Friday, you can work any evening you want, you can work any Saturday you want, you carry the beeper, you deal with the emergencies. So I think that this is time for dentistry to step up. I'd like Patterson to step up. I'd like Henry Schein to step up. I'd like the bankers. I want people to step up and look after these 6,000. We have a responsibility to that. They went into dentistry with a lot of hope and passion, and they can come out and they're going to have to change their attitude about what they're going to make. They're going to have to change their attitude about what they're going to do. And the restorative doctors get creative. You were successful before COVID crisis. You're going to be successful when we get past this. And so use this opportunity if hygienists don't want to come back and hire these wonderful students.
Yeah, I'll try to make a quick comment because I'm down to one question. I know you got a lot on your schedule, but you know what's really so amazing to me is my Colorado dentist friends aren't having to deal with this hygiene issue because they have independent practitioner, and I talked to my Colorado dentist, and it's like, my gosh, your hygienist doesn't want to come back to work, and because of the high volume and all this stuff. And I wish that when this is all done and said, that we gave the hygienists independent practitioners, because it's dentistry is not a game of volume anymore. I mean, the whole thing was set up going all the way back to Quest in the 80s, that I'm going to go numb up this patient, then do a hygiene check, seed a crown, prep a tooth.
The time and motion studies.
Yeah, I'm going to bounce. It's no longer a game of volume. And if the patient wants to go to the hygienist, all the independent practitioners I know from here to Australia, it's in their house. They went and they took out their dining room table and they put in an operatory, and their phone is their iPhone. And one person comes to their house and they do the cleaning. And if they see something, they send a referral to the dentist up the street. So one way to solve the whole hygiene problem, and plus I'm a big fan of competition. When I was a little boy, when you walk down the sidewalk on a Saturday and Sunday, every third garage was the dad, the son, and the uncle trying to fix the car, because none of them worked. And then when Japan and Germany started sending in those little Volkswagen Bugs and those little Datsun B210s, and they drove 100,000 miles without blinking, all of a sudden American cars got really, really good. And I think that if the only way you can maintain a hygiene department is taking away their economic freedom to self-independence, that's just horrible. And I think, and when all these hygienists right now are screaming, I'm afraid to come back to work, what better time than to just say, then stay home and be an independent practice and do that. But that's not where I want to have my final question. But it was the lead in to CAD/CAM, because again, we started this with, if you're waiting on a virus, I was told in dental school that the French had this CEREC technology, this CAD/CAM, and I got out of school in '87 and bought the CEREC 1. And then I was so happy 10 years later when I upgraded the CEREC 2, and then came the CEREC 3. And it really it didn't even wow me till the OmniCam came out. And that's when it really got wow. But now that dentistry is no longer a game of volume, I really don't want to make it temporary and have you back 2 weeks. If there was ever a time I wanted to just see you one time, I mean, I'm envisioning you come in and we're just going to have a 2-3 hour appointment. I'm going to do your cleaning, your x-rays. If you had one filling, do it. You broke it too. I'm going to see you for 3 hours and just do Imtiaz from his nose to his toes, one visit. Do you see this as a rebirth of the CAD/CAM?
So, CAD/CAM had very, very good momentum before COVID hit. It was returning to its normal place. I think that this is the, in 2008, people asked me, with this economy, why are you so committed to the CEREC? And I said, I'm not committed to the CEREC because of the word CEREC. I'm committed to the word CEREC because it is about one single stop dentistry, and I see the future being very much that. And so it's my belief in the company Sorona, which is now Dentsupply. It was my belief at the time. It was Michael Organs and was the person that I was working with. It was my belief in that in a bad economy, the patient is going to come into your practice and they're going to be in the now and they'll say yes now. But if they walk to the front desk and make an appointment, they may cancel, they may not come back. So it was more than single visit. It was about consumerism. It was about making it easier, what I call removing the friction. The friction is, how to think about this, I got to get in the car, then I got to find my way to your parking lot, then I got to come to your reception area, then I'm going to sit in your chair, and then you're going to do an exam on me, and then you're going to tell me that I need to come back to get the dentistry, and then you're going to tell me I've got to finish it. Well, so I saw the model back in 2008 and jumped all the way in. In fact, it was what was the heartbeat of what used to be Scottish Center for Dentistry. So now we've got the brown spear, we've got the brown sea dogs, and we're excited about technology more than ever before. I think the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. I feel that way about the CEREC. I think it's an absolute, the question is, how do we get people seeing that when I'm just worried about going back to practice, right? And that's the challenge we're working on now, because I so believe that this is an answer. So we would love the 16,000, whatever the number is, practitioners that already want to CEREC to use it more, because they buy these units and then they use it kind of occasionally. So I would say to you that we want more depth in the user base, which is already occurring based on the traffic we see, because they're using this downtime in getting better at their skill sets, the traffic we see in CDocs. It's unbelievable what's going on there. But I think there is no, to answer your question, 101%, I'm very clear that this is, I don't know that it's a rebirth, but I think it is the awareness that's been out there. Should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? That pendulum is going to be easier to say I should do it.
Well, is it fair enough to say from the days of LD Panky to today that dentistry is now no longer a game of volume more than ever before?
My input on that is 1,000% yes. It's always been the philosophy that has built every business that I've ever been involved with. It is better to have fewer clients and really serve them well. Like we could at Spear, we could be at a 90% market share if we wanted to, but we know what our marketplace is, and I think that for example, Spear Online, 1,600 videos on learning. We have 16,000 members. There's patient engagement on it. And it's $200 a month, right? And so
they go to spear.com or spearonline.com.
It's just, if you go to spear.com, you'll get to Spear Online. It's on $200 a month. And we're giving them business strategies to return on a self-serve platform with every step that they need to take all worked out. And so I'm super excited about CEREC because I think it's there's innovation, and innovation is misunderstood. We think it's new. Innovation is really the same thing done in a different way, right? And so this period of time has legitimized that people need to come to dental town, because there's time. And I don't think that the experience will go away because it'll stay with us. So from a Spear perspective, super excited about the future. We have over 200 employees. We need 200 employees for the campus learning. We needed the 200 employees to take the campus learning and augment online learning. And today, online learning is the heartbeat of our organization, and campus augments online learning. So we've changed the way education should be delivered. CEREC has changed the way dentistry should be delivered. And its time has always been right, but it is never more right than now, because you're right. I want to do more with less visits. That reduces my overhead.
You know how many people work for me? About half.
Yeah.
So final question. I promise that final question. We started that there's not going to be the super doc strategy, from no specialties to now there's 12. The four biggest areas that they could be using this downtime to learn more with online C: implants, endo, aligners, CAD/CAM. Put them in order. What would be first, second, third, fourth?
CAD/CAM.
CAD/CAM be one?
Yeah, it would be number one.
Okay.
Because it 101% supports the everyday dentistry that I do, that I can be complete and thorough and comprehensive with that patient. Right? The rest, I think, is kind of parallel to me, right? Because it's about patient need and patient drive. So I think CAD/CAM is CEREC, and in my opinion, CEREC. I don't see CAD/CAM, I see CEREC, and because it's my blood. I still believe it's the system, and I've seen the innovation that they're doing into the future, and so I'm a firm believer of the technology. So I see it as number one, not because of my love for CEREC, not because we happen to be the largest education center around it, but I wasn't the largest education center in 2008 around it, right? I just began, and I will tell you categorically that it is absolutely a serious piece of technology that people need to look at, that have looked at it but revisit it based on the time what you started with, which is saying LD Pankey, the Dawson Institute and Coase and Frank and all these people were into holistic dentistry, right? We were lucky enough to get Frank to take the idea of treatment planning and case acceptance and institutionalize it, right? Because he's only one. He maybe teaches 5% of what is taught at Sphere right now, but his legacy, his value, his framework is what we've built this entire process on. And what the idea of economic excellence, practice excellence, and clinical excellence can absolutely coexist. That idea is still the most valid idea, in my opinion, and supports slowing down and doing comprehensive dentistry. And to you, it's more per visit. To me, really, it's more per visit, but in a way that's comprehensive in nature. So
well, you promised me an hour, and I was slick willy enough to steal you for an hour and 37 minutes. So I feel really good about that. And I was supposed to podcast Frank, and it was canceled by the pandemic. So I hope I get to bring Frank back. That's a coveted deal. But Imtiaz, thank you so much for coming back on the show for a second time. When you're a sea captain and the storm hits and you're looking for a lighthouse, I think of Imtiaz Manji. Thanks for being dentistry's lighthouse during rough waters. And I hope you come back on the show again someday.
You bet.
All right.
Well, I hope I don't come back in these times. I want to come back to celebrate. All right, buddy. Take care.
Have a great day.
Take care. Bye.